Good evening and welcome to Mets 360 here on Riverside. I'm your host, Brian Jura, and I'm very pleased to welcome my old friend and longtime writing partner, Charlie Hangley, to the podcast. Hey, Charlie, how you doing?
Terrific, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great. Let's get right into it. Last week in the Crazy Prediction segment, I threw out there that Frankie Montas would not make a start for the Mets this season. Of course, everything depends upon injuries, and if there's injuries, clearly he's going to get a start. But if injuries aren't an issue, how committed do you think the Mets are to get Montas into the rotation by the end of the month?
By the end of the month, I don't see it by the end of the month. I do see it probably sometime around mid-June, mainly because everyone else is doing so well. I don't think there's any rush to add another starter. I mean, there is right now because, we'd like to have the six-man rotation in this sort of Bataan Death March portion of the spring, was it 13 games or 12 games in 13 days or something like that? But I don't see them pushing it terribly hard. I think they're aiming more for mid-June.
And the end of this month may be the most optimistic scenario as far as when Montas will be able to return. Last I heard, he was throwing from 120 feet, which is certainly a good sign. But I think all along they've been saying that he should be ready to return without any setbacks by the end of the month, which is why
Okay.
I put that time frame out there. And, it could be that he needs a little more time. And like you said, the rest of the guys are pitching well, so there's no urgency outside of the sixth starter, and they've been covering that well so far. To me, the most interesting thing will be when Sean Manaea returns. He's
Right.
supposedly a little bit behind Montas right now, and I feel it's different with Manaea. I do think they'll make the effort to get him into the rotation that I don't think that they'll make for Montas.
I agree. And yes, from what I understand, Manaea is a bit behind Montas, apparently about 20 yards behind Montas in terms of the throwing distance. Lord knows when we're going to see Manaea, but I hope the Chris Sale arm angle thing didn't back up on him somehow.
Yeah, I think that's been overplayed. He was pitching well even before he adopted that. It's just that he had, I believe it was 5 starts where he got hit hard last year out of the 31 or 32 starts that he made, and three
Mm.
of them were before the arm angle switch, and two of them were after. So, um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, he comes back and he's the guy he was for the great majority of 2024.
I was hoping.
All right, well, let's switch to the other side of things and talk about hitting, specifically Pete Alonso. I've been so impressed with Alonso laying off the pitches that he would flail at previously. He's really just swinging at strikes for the most part now. But, it's easy to make a change over, 24 games, but can he do it over a 162 game season?
Well, first of all, let's give him his credit. That's NL Player of the Month for March and April. Pete Alonso, thank you very much. And well deserved, I might add. I mean, his plate discipline, obviously the results that he's getting now, I don't see as sustainable unless he's, Stan Musial. But the plate discipline, the eye down swing and miss, the cut down chase rate, I think he can keep that up. Absolutely. I think these are good habits developed and you don't lose them pretty easily. I mean, unless he gets hurt and he finds himself on the shelf for a certain length of time and he gets rusty and loses that kind of focus. But listen, considering he's on a what they call a prove it contract right now, I don't see his new philosophy going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know if we can call a $30 million deal a prove it contract, whatever. That's just semantics, I guess. It's extremely encouraging to see him laying off those pitches that you knew were coming with 2 strikes on the last few years, and you knew he was going to swing, and you knew he wasn't going to make contact. The fact that he's making pitchers come to him, it's just wonderful to see. I'm not as convinced as you are that he'll be able to keep that up for the entire season, but man, it would be great if he could.
Absolutely.
All right,
And
well,
and quite frankly, I think that it's the signing of Soto. He's getting better stuff to hit, and he's taking advantage of it because he's got Soto in front of him.
It's interesting to hear you say that because I read something, this is a while ago, 9 months, maybe even a year ago, where all these people who believe in lineup protection think that it's the person who's hitting behind you that provides the protection. If there's anything to be found from the various studies that have been done, it's that the protection happens from the batter in front of you, not the batter behind you, which would support your statement there about Soto and Alonso.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we're talking about Juan Soto, what do you feel like the minimum acceptable production for him would be from the fan base? He's doing fine right now, but it seems like the fan base is less than thrilled because he's only got like a 130 OPS plus.
Right. Yeah, minimum from the fan base would be a slash line of 357, 432, 989, and and an OPS plus of point a jillion, or an OPS of 1 point a jillion. Oh, that's if he has the fan base, and anytime he strikes out, he's a bum and he's not worth the money. It's two different things. For me, I would just like to see him, do what he did last year. Play up to the back of his baseball card. What is it? 280, 5 something slugging. That'd be gravy enough for me and make him worth every penny.
Soto had
Just
such a good
play to the
year.
back of the baseball card. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking for.
yeah. Soto had such a good year last year. We'd like to think that he'll just continue some kind of linear growth upwards, but that's not always necessarily the case just because we've seen some high-profile Mets imports struggle in their first season, and then also just for the simple fact that Yankee Stadium's a little bit easier to hit in than Citi Field.
Oh, but Soto's made his career hitting well at Citi Field, basically.
Absolutely, he's done tremendous at Citi Field.
Yeah, so I'm not terribly worried about the ballpark because he's got a good history there. It just took him a little bit to tap into it this year. But I forget what was the first part of your statement. I forget what it was.
Well, we were just talking about how good he was in 2024.
Yeah. And basically, I'm just hoping for better than he was in San Diego.
All right. Well, you made reference to this earlier, and I'd like to go into a little more detail. And that's all of this very long stretch where the Mets had just one off day. And with that stretch and with the injuries that they've suffered to the relievers here recently, the Mets are seemingly making a different pitching move every day. And I know this bothers a lot of people, and I'm wondering, does this bother you? And if so, what do you think the solution is to fix that?
My answer, as always, or at least as always since about May of 2024, is in Stearns we trust. The man is preternaturally intelligent. I think he's got his finger on everything. He sees everything. He's got a extraordinary feel for this roster. He just knows. I mean, he knows who's pitching well, who's pitching not well, and he's got his eyes on it. He's got his eyes on everything. So I think, whatever the decision is, if it's Stearns' idea, it's a good one.
All right. Well, let's move
Quite
a little
frankly,
bit.
well, to finish it off, I also have great trust in Jeremy Hefner and Carlos Mendoza. Based off, I mean, I even wrote a piece on it a couple of months ago about their uncanny ability to get the most out of who's ever up on that bump at any given moment.
Let's move beyond our belief in the Mets decision makers, the front office, the in dugout personnel, whoever, but just talk about, like the other day, they called up Brandon Waddell, and he had been pitching very well in the minors, and he came up and pitched, I think it was 4.1 scoreless innings. Did great.
He did a really good job.
And what was his reward? He got immediately sent back down. And is that good for the game? Is it good for the fans to see somebody come up, do exactly what he was supposed to do, and his reward is getting sent out? I mean, this is a separate case, I think, from, God, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the Mets had a reliever, came up, got a save, pitched 3 innings, but he gave up like 5 runs.
Hernandez.
I don't think it was Cabrera. I think it was it might have been, but regardless.
No, Urania. Jose Urania.
Correct, Jose Urania. So he gave up 5 runs in 3 innings. I mean, I don't feel bad for him. and then he landed on his feet anyway. Somebody picked him up after the Mets DFA'd him. But someone like Waddell, I think it stinks.
I disagree only in the fact that
Whoop, you're cutting
clearly
out on
you're
me,
in the
Charlie. Your volume cutting out on me.
sorry. How about now? You okay?
Yep.
I disagree, mainly based on the assumption that before they called him up, they sat him down and told him, "Look, this is how it's going to be. Whether you throw, 6 inning no hitter, or you get your ears knocked off." If they set him up ahead of time, I don't think that's cruel and unusual.
Well, I do
Um,
believe 100% that every pitcher that they're bringing up knows the deal, whether the Mets explicitly said that to them or not. I mean, I think that everyone can read the writing on the wall. I guess my question is that okay? That's the way that it is, and I just think that they should do something to make it not so harsh.
Yeah.
Uh,
I get that. I get that. I don't know what else could be done other than the league further restricting the options rule, because basically what Stearns is doing with it is this is his version of Moneyball. This is his, what is it, market inefficiency. It's like here's the situation we find ourselves in. Here are the rules that we can play inside of. Here's how I can use that to my best advantage. I don't really see much wrong with that.
I don't want to paint this as a Mets specific problem. I think this is something that all 30 clubs in MLB do to one extent or another. And my solution has been for Major League Baseball to maybe borrow a page from the NFL and have some sort of taxi squad where people are on it, and even if they don't get into an MLB game while they're on the taxi squad, they would draw an MLB paycheck. And I think that would at least alleviate the problem somewhat. And you'd
That's
have
not a
to,
bad idea. And don't they already do that in September?
well, in September, they can expand the roster. You can add one more pitcher and one more hitter.
I thought they
So
had a taxi squad thing. That
They
was just
they
during
did that.
COVID.
They did some version of that back in the COVID year, but to the best of my knowledge, they don't have that now. And you would have to have some kind of flexibility within the system, maybe make changes to who's on the taxi squad, once a week, twice a month, something like that. But
Right, right.
if they viewed it as a priority, they could get it done.
Sure.
All right, well, I got one more hitter I'd like to talk to you about right away, and that's Jeff McNeil. And he's long been one of my favorites. I'm glad to see him back healthy, but it's kind of odd to see him out there in center field. I believe he's gotten 3 starts out there and has done pretty much as well as you could have hoped for. But, outside of the actual results in that 3 games, do you think it's a good idea to play him in center? And do you think that the Mets are handling center field well with the lack of Jose Siri?
I think McNeil, obviously, I mean, him being a former batting champ, is a far, far grade over Jose Siri offensively. As far as his defense goes, he hasn't really been challenged yet. So I don't know. He hasn't had anything, he hasn't had a ball hit him in the head and go over the fence, but he also hasn't made a diving stop or a leap at the wall or anything like that. The jury's still out on him in terms of defense. But that being said, I great faith in him because he acquitted himself so well corners. And he's fast enough. He's faster than Nimmo. He's faster than Brandon Nimmo. Uh, and has a better set of wheels than Brandon Nimmo, and certainly is in much better shape to be out there than a Starling Marte. I think McNeil is the kind of a guy and the kind of a player that he can do whatever the heck he wants so long as he puts his mind to it. Center field, sure, why not? I'll have a bash, and
I would
just let him go do it.
I would very much like to see a foot race between Nimmo and McNeil. And we heard reports earlier during spring training that Nimmo supposedly had 91% of his top speed back.
Right. I
Is
remember
that
that.
true? I don't know. But I would say that in a straight line race, my money would be on Nimmo.
Really? Even with the plantar fasciitis, huh?
Yep, I think that for the most part that has been, I don't want to say cured, but it's not an issue, I don't believe, right this second. I think it's probably more likely that the knee is an issue for Nimmo. Supposedly he got the what was it, the PRP or a gel injection,
Right. Yeah.
something like that in spring training. But visually, I don't see anything that would like, oh man, he seems like he's hobbling out there. And McNeil is always going to give you 100% effort all of the time. So can Nimmo match that? Maybe, maybe not. But I think from a pure speed point of view, I think Nimmo is still faster.
Well, and the thing is too, I mean, if you recall back when Nimmo was drafted in
Oh yeah, he was a
20
high school. He was a high school
2014 or whatever the hell it was.
2011. It's
2011. Geez, it's that
even
long ago.
longer ago. Yeah.
Right, because he came up in 2016 and he wasn't, yeah. Everyone said, it was a little bit like Daniel Murphy light. Defense wasn't going to be his strong suit. He was drafted for his bat, and he was in the outfield because that was basically where he could probably do the least damage. He acquitted himself well as a center fielder. That was surprising to me when in his first couple of years, that he was the everyday center fielder. So he got over whatever defensive yips he might have had as a youngster. But again, he's still not going to be Willie Mays. So
Well, the issue with Nimmo defensively is he's got a noodle arm, and that plays best in left field. I don't think there was anything wrong with Nimmo's range or his glove. We've seen him make multiple home run saving catches. It's just that he can't throw. I mean,
yeah,
even on balls hit to medium left field, he throws the ball back in, and it almost always bounces. It's just like, Lindor's got to be, come on, man, be on the fly.
hit my chest.
Just try it out. See if you like it. All right. Well, I've got another maybe not so serious query for you.
Okay.
And that's the City Connect jerseys. They're no longer new. This is the second year that they're around, but they're still being used for home Friday night games. I believe it is. So what do you think about them? We haven't had the chance to talk since they debuted last year. I'm just curious what you've seen, what you've really liked or disliked.
I would have, well, I mean, I know the whole idea of the City Connect is to get away from the team's quote unquote usual colors. I still would have liked to seen a little more orange or a little more blue.
All right, now did you see last night's game?
I saw clips of it.
The
With the
Cardinals,
Cardinals
the
City
Cardinals
Connect.
wore their City Connects and they kept the red, so they had a red jersey, a red hat, and red Cardinals.
Right. Yeah, well, the Cardinals are a different thing because the plot is in the title. Their name is Cardinal. You got to have some kind of thing there. I mean, what color is a Met?
Well, they could have gone the female Cardinal, which I believe is mostly gray with a little tuft of red in there.
A little bit. I get them in my backyard, so I see them every day. The females are also still red, but they're a little more muted. But anyway, I digress. I really like the City Connect. I really like the concept of it. I love the lettering, old school with the NYC with the bumps in the middle of it. I would have preferred. I mean, I know this conjures up terrible memories for a lot of people. I would have preferred those kind of throwback things from 2009 that David Wright was wearing when he got beamed by Chris, what's his name from the Giants? With the big N on one side and the big Y on the other. I would
Oh,
have
whoa, yeah. I have the visual now.
actually preferred that because I thought that even back then I thought that was a really cool look. And after David Wright got decapitated, that ended up going nowhere. But I really like the City Connect jersey. I wish they'd pop a little more. They look a little too drab for me.
I understand what you're saying about the jersey from 2009. It almost had like a Negro League feel to me, and I certainly don't say that as a bad thing.
Yeah, no, no,
I
no.
get it. I like it.
And it was an homage to one of the first decorative uniforms worn by the New York Giants, and which was an oddity during the Wilpon era because it was all Dodger centric. So I was actually kind of glad to see the McGraw men get a little nod. And I think that would have just been such a cool look for the City Connects.
So I think we're in agreement on that uniform, but we are completely diametrically opposed on the City Connects. I won't tell you what name calls them in the game chatters, but it's kind of derogative that it rhymes with city, if you
Yes,
catch my
okay.
drift.
Understood.
And I think that I fall on that side of things. I read all of the supposed thought that went into by the marketing team while they were creating this jersey. I'll give them an A for effort, but as far as when I view the finished product, to me, what it screams is something to sell to tourists. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't it doesn't say it doesn't say New York Mets in any kind of in any kind of way to me, and it just seems like, ooh, it's got something about the subway, ooh, and
Oh, look, a bridge. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and it's like it's very hard. It's a very hard concept to pull off, and the vast majority of the City Connect uniforms that we see throughout the league, I think, are borderline hideous. I would say the ones that work for me. I like the uniform top for the Angels where they have the number in the diagonal. I,
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that really works. I like the red pinstripes that the Marlins have.
I love Miami's. I love Miami's City
I
Connects.
think
I
that's
do.
sharp. And the one that I like that other people that I've talked to kind of look at me like I have two heads. I like the yellow of the Boston. I'm sure that my old friends from Massachusetts would just look at me and shake their heads, and maybe they say the same thing. That's something you sell to the tourists. But to me, it looks sharp.
Thing for me is like the Boston one was the first one that I remember seeing, and I just didn't get it. I didn't get what the purpose was again, other than something else to sell, which as we know, there's no shortage of them in and around MLB. But I like it. What I'm seeing now, it's funny because I am coming down, and a friend of mine made a loud complaint about this. Just the other day, the City Connects for the White Sox came down, and it's an homage to the Bulls.
To the Bulls, yes, yes, I did see that.
You see that one? I love it. I think it's a great idea.
Well, when you're coming off a season where you
Unfortunately,
lost
I would have
121 games, it's probably a good idea to attach yourself to, what was it, 6 titles in 9 years or whatever it was.
right, of course, but also, if there's a cynical part of me, it's like, well, if the Cubs had done it, it might mean a little more. But the White Sox are much like the Mets. The White Sox are the quote unquote second team in town, and so they're scrambled, as you said, to attach themselves to the ultimate Chicago champions.
Now,
Kind of rings.
know that the Yankees don't have a City Connect, but I'm drawing a blank on the Cubs. Do they have one, or are they taking the
One yet, I don't think.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So I'm not crazy.
No, I don't think they've had one yet.
All right. Well, speaking of crazy, I think it's crazy prediction time. I'll give you a crazy prediction, and then I'll ask you to comment on mine, and then I'll ask you to give me your own crazy prediction, and I'll tell you whether or not I think it's crazy. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So here you go. Mine is that the Mets are going to trade for a closer at the deadline and move Edwin Diaz into a setup role. So I want to know, how crazy is that?
That seems pretty crazy. I know Stearns and Cohen and Mendoza don't think this way, but for the money they're paying Edwin Diaz, he's going to be the closer.
And I think under a normal ownership, that would 100% be true. But I think the Mets got a really strong taste of postseason success last year. And my understanding is that they want to at least match what they did a year ago, if not surpass that. And given it's just tough to have uncertainty in your late inning thing. And that's why, although I do think it's crazy, why I could see it making a bit of sense.
I mean, unless they're gonna shoot the moon and bring in like a Josh Hader or somebody who's been absolutely lights
Right.
out.
It can't be the closer of the month for the Pirates or
Right.
the
Right.
Royals or somebody, some NL Central club. All right.
Along those lines, and speaking of Diaz, here is my prediction. I think, and it might even be easier now that because he's just been sent down. I think they're going to swing a trade with the Reds and bring in Edwin Diaz's brother.
Ooh, I like that idea.
I can
I did see that he went down. Did he have something that set him back in spring training, an injury or a visa problem or something? It seems like I heard that he didn't have like a normal lead up to the season, and then he's been playing catch up and not playing it particularly well.
I don't know. I really hadn't heard that. I just know he has not been pitching well since he's been here, and the Reds are on a hot run. So I think that was the reason. He was like, let's keep the train rolling and let's not have anything trip it up.
Right, right.
So they sent him down.
So
But I could see him, doubling up in the City Field clubhouse with Edwin.
so was the Diaz really your crazy prediction?
Yes.
Oh, that's outstanding. We had Diaz on the mind.
Well, listen, that makes sense because I mean, outside of the lack of offense, I mean, all evidence to the contrary lately, and they're Pythagorean. The closer has been their main concern. I mean, their setup roles have been lights out, no matter who they've plugged in there. The starting pitchers, they has been famed in story and song. They've opened everybody's eyes, and the offense eventually will get going when Soto gets going. So the main quote unquote weak link right now has been the closer. So it makes sense that we're both thinking of Edwin Diaz.
So I have to say, I like your idea. I could very easily see the Mets acquiring Junior Diaz.
Alexis Diaz.
Alexis, I didn't, for some reason, I had Almides stuck in my head, and it's like, that's not right. But that's why I called him Junior. So
There you go.
Alexis Diaz, I like the idea of acquiring Alexis Diaz, but you'd have to think that if they acquired him, it would be to be Edwin's main setup man.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so for that reason, I can't call it crazy, but I do like it. All right, so let's get a little more serious. Now, this may not sound serious, but I absolutely mean this in a serious way. You mentioned Pete Alonso winning a Player of the Month award, and that wasn't the only award that the Mets won, as Luisangel Acuna won the Rookie of the Month for April as well. But my question to you is, should Max Kranick have won that Rookie award instead?
Possible. The way he pitches, I forget that he's a rookie, quite frankly.
And he's a rookie.
It seems like
just
he's been around
technically.
forever. And because of the similarities in the last name, for the first week or so of the season, I was mixing up Kranick and Stanek. So there was a little bit of that. But I think he definitely has a legitimate claim to it, Max Kranick. But I think all things being equal, and if say that in the minds of the voters, whoever they are, if the two were neck and neck coming into it, Acuna's going to get it based on his last name.
Agreed.
Name recognition. It's Acuna. He must be good. Look at his brother.
And I think there's two other things, and one, something that you already referenced, and that is he really a rookie? Oh yeah, I guess he is technically. And then it's just tough for a middle reliever to have any kind of for lack of a better phrase, star power as
Right.
a guy who's essentially playing every day.
Well, it's one of those subtle impact things. It's like it's kind of like a pulling guard in football. You don't notice him at all unless he does something wrong.
Or if you don't have him.
Right.
As a Vikings fan who's been complaining about the team not having an offensive line for, I don't know, a decade, you don't know the value of those guys until you don't have them. All right, well, you're fading out on me again.
Sorry. Turn my head for a second. How about now?
Yeah, perfect. All right,
Okay.
so one last thing on the Kranick Acuna thing. Through games of April 30th, they both had an identical 0.4 Fangraphs version of WAR. So they were
Interesting.
they were pretty evenly matched. All right, well, I want to talk about over-unders. I think we've both written about over-unders in the past, and
Yep.
BetMGM had a preseason over-under total of the Mets of 0.5. So I want to ask if you, Charlie, you were to set the line today, where would you put the Mets over-under at?
Well, looking at I check. I mean, I'm a I'm a big nerd this way. After every Met game, win or lose, I check playoff odds to see how far, how impactful each loss was or each win was, or if injuries are playing a role and everything like that. And the Mets have been solidly between 84 and 88% for the last like 2 weeks
Oh, that's chance to make the
to
playoff.
make the playoffs
Okay,
in any kind of capacity. They're
I'm look,
also
I'm looking for a win total.
No, I know. I get that. I get that. So thus far, I would adjust the win total now. I thought 90.5 was a little pessimistic. I was thinking in the 91, 92 range, maybe. Based off this first month and the foundation that they've laid and the optimism of Fangraphs, I would set that now at about 95.5 to 96.
To me, it's interesting because I don't disagree with you, but when you just hear that number in a vacuum, it almost sounds crazy. Like it's too high for like any non-Dodgers team to have an over/under total of 95 or 96. But I mean, the Mets are right up there with the Dodgers as far as best record in baseball. So why shouldn't it be that high?
Half
It,
a game back.
yeah, it's just
You
a
know,
hard thing for me to wrap my head around. I would say that 90 wins would pretty much give you what, a 98% chance of making the playoffs, 99%.
nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. So and then the fact that we're gonna uh, add five more on there, it's just a lot in a way. You know, maybe that's just pre-Cohen thinking on my part. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't object if that's how you labeled it, but it's just an awful lot. And I think the one thing that we have to keep in mind, while the Mets have played exceptionally well, especially given the injury situation that they've still had a fairly easy schedule to date. They've played a bunch of. They haven't played like the absolute dregs. I mean, they haven't played the Rockies. They haven't played the White Sox. But they've played a bunch of teams that are under 500, and you just
Yeah,
have to
but
wonder.
their record against teams that are over 500 is something like 10 and
Yeah,
6 or something like that. I mean, it's they made short work of the Phillies.
right. So
You know,
I know that the Phillies definitely count, and I think the Astros do. So between those two teams, it's 4-2, and the Blue Jays are close. I mean, some days they get over 500, some days they're two games below. But that would be another three wins if you were to count them.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, the test is going to come clearly.
Oh yeah,
Especially especially in the places where they historically don't play well. L.A., San Diego, San Francisco. Really worried about the Cubs because they always play each other kind of dead even. And the Cubs, the Reds might give them a little trouble. I'm just thinking in terms of teams that are over 500. And I
well the
take a kind of provincial hometown delight in not counting the Atlanta Braves as being one of those over 500 teams yet. So I don't. They're not on the map yet.
since you brought them up, the Cubs, they're just hitting the snot out of the ball. I mean, they had 9 runs after 2 innings last night, and you know, that's not all that unusual for them here the last, I don't know, 2 weeks or so. They're not going to be a pushover with that offense.
No, but it seems to me, and this is totally a skewed perception, but it looks to me like every time you turn around, they're putting a pitcher on the DL. So
Yeah, the
Justin just put
Justin
Justin,
Steele,
what's his name? Justin
Justin
Steele.
Steele.
You know that, and again, I've been watching long enough that traditionally the Cubs have always been short on pitching, and the times that they've won were the times that they have not. So if they get their staff, shift shape, they're going to be trouble. Like you said, no pushover. But the Mets always seem to play them dead even. Always.
All right, well, I think we have time for one more question, and I want to talk about the broadcast booth. We're all generally big fans of Gary, Keith, and Ron, but this not the last series, the one before that, Daniel Murphy sat in the 4 games against the Washington Nationals, and we had heard Murph before. He's had a prominent role in the booth the last 2 preseasons at least. I like him. And I want to know, what do you think of Murphy as an announcer? And what do you think of the idea of him replacing Keith Hernandez in the booth?
I love Murphy as an announcer. I think he's got a fantastic voice. He's got this basso profundo that comes across as very professional and it's very much a baseball voice, or a baseball player voice. And I think he has some good insights. He's got some good memories. I think it was, I won't say serendipitous because I'm sure it was on purpose, but nice that they had him in the booth for a series between the two teams with which he had the most success.
Right.
I think he's really good. I mean, he's got some rough edges because he's new. He's not a pro. But I never heard Ron Darling in his first year, and I'm sure it was probably close to the same. As far as him replacing Keith is, he's Keith Hernandez. And he can write his own ticket. I think Keith is going to be around as long as Keith wants to be around. When he's tired of making road trips, when he's tired of being away from Long Island, when he's tired of getting home at 1:30 a.m. every night. He'll hang him up, but he'll do that whenever he wants to. As far as Murph replacing him, I couldn't think of a better one.
So you said two things that I found really interesting. First off, you were very complimentary of Murphy's voice. And to me, that is like the one thing that I'm not completely sold on. It just sounds a little thin. I'm not a big Keith Hernandez fan at this point of his career, but he's got a very warm voice. And I wouldn't describe Murphy's voice in quite the same way.
Mm.
It's not without its charms, I guess, but to me, it's a little bit of a come down, just the sound of his voice, nothing else. I think what he says is so far superior to what we're used to getting from our hitting color analyst these days. When I first got the MLB package and got to listen to GKR, I much preferred Keith to Ronnie. But in the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, that's flipped.
You switched, huh?
I much prefer hearing Ronnie. I think I learned something from Ronnie, and I feel like at this point, when somebody wakes Keith up in the booth and he says something, it's pretty much a cliche, and maybe it's an impossible thing for a color guy to remain new and fresh and relevant 20 years into the job. But here's what I wish they would do with Hernandez. At the end of his life, or not at the end, near the end, Ralph Kiner would come into the booth, what was it, once a month or so?
Right.
And
I was thinking it as you started saying it. Yeah.
he would sit in on the broadcast, and I thought he was great. It was so refreshing to hear him. And yeah, no doubt some of that is nostalgia. But I really did think that he did a good job in the booth and brought such different perspective than what Hernandez, who was not, just wasn't giving at the time. So, maybe Murphy can take over the full-time gig and then Keith can come on once a month.
Yeah. Have him be hitting analyst emeritus, something like that.
So I heard something, they made reference to this in the booth. They didn't expand on it. And I'm not sure if you heard this or not, but after the season, Keith is moving, and he's not moving to Florida. He's moving to South Carolina.
No.
And it's got to be like a ritzy, like Hilton Head or something like that. Maybe Charleston.
Yeah, you would think. Why else would you leave the Hamptons?
It's just like such a tough thing to like balance in my head. I mean, I think of Keith as this such cosmopolitan guy.
Right.
And then, cosmopolitan is not one of the first 1,000 words I think of when I think of South Carolina.
South Carolina, no.
So I was wondering if there was somebody new in Keith's life, or if he just got a fantastic real estate deal, or what. But just curious to think of Keith as a member of the Palmetto State. All right. Do you have any last thoughts?
No, but I mean, just other than the fact that we're to the point of the season, I was brought up short this afternoon when I realized the Kentucky Derby is today. So
I got a picture from a Facebook friend of mine who is at the Derby, and I was disappointed in her hat choice. But what can you say?
Exactly.
All right. Well, I will let you run so you can catch the Derby. I appreciate you coming in on such short notice, and it's always great to do the podcast with you, Charlie.
I love talking to you, Brian. Always did.
All right. Take care. Good night, everyone.